Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's Tools and Techniques session, brought to you by the IIBA Cape Town region. My name is Zulumgile, and I will be your host for today. So today we will be having Lyle, who will be talking to us about data-driven business analysis. So Lyle is going to take us through understanding the role and opportunities for the business analyst in the world of data, and uncover some tools and techniques for data-driven business analysts. Very excited about hearing what Lyle has to offer for us today. So a bit about Lyle. So Lyle Peterson holds an honors degree in information systems and serves as a business intelligence business analyst for DVT. So he has professional experience in business analysis and the implementation of data-driven solutions. This has exposed him to the challenges and strategic opportunities associated with data and has kindled a keen interest in fulfilling these using industry best practices and best of breed technologies. His career has focused on solutions aimed at providing business insight and supporting business objectives. This includes consulting duties and experience in the healthcare industries, in the retail and financial services industries. So that is all about Lyle. So he's very much into this. He has spoken many times. He's spoken in many conferences, has spoken in IIBA conferences before. He is very passionate about data-driven analysis. He's a speaker that is very passionate about research on the topics that he speaks about. So I'm very excited for today. I'm hoping that you guys are excited as well. So if we can do a bit of housekeeping before we start with today, before we hand over to Lyle. If you can go to the next slide, Lyle. Oh, sorry, you forgot. There's a second slide that is.
Okay, well, I have the slide.
You don't have the second one. Okay,
No.
Cool. Let me try, and I'm gonna try and present from my side quickly, Lyle, so we can go through it, and then I'll hand it over to you again. Okay. You can see my screen. Okay. Okay, so if we go through a bit of housekeeping for today. So if you have any questions, so how we will do it is that Lyle will go through his presentation, and then if you have any questions, please post them on the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we will then go through the questions, and Lyle will answer the questions that you pop in. And if we somewhat run out of time while we're going through the questions, or if you have any questions that are post the presentation, please send them to Cape Town at southafrica.iiba.org, and we'll forward them to Lyle, and Lyle will be in touch with you. You can also follow Lyle on LinkedIn. I will post his LinkedIn profile link as well. So this presentation will be uploaded in the IIBA SA YouTube page, which can be found at youtube.com/user/IIBA SA. I will post that link on the as well. So unfortunately, we do not send the presentation deck to our audience, so we do not share the content of our presenters. So to become a member of the IIBA, please go to iiba.org/business analysis -membership, or you can follow our IIBA LinkedIn page, and you can get in touch with any of the IIBA board members. You may also email the Cape Town at IIBA Cape Town and South Africa.iiba.org as well. Okay, so we are always looking forward to having new members to our organization. So if you'd also like to present a tool or technique like Lyle is doing today, you can book your session at calendar.com/JHB sessions/tools extras, or you can email capetown@iiba.org. Or you can also follow the IIBA and try and connect with the IIBA executive directly. So to be up to date with the next coming events, please go through to the my.iiba.org/portal/events, or you may still follow the IIBA LinkedIn page where we post every upcoming event. So we do advertise all our upcoming event on our LinkedIn page as well. If you would like to be in contact with our Cape Town region, that is our email address, which is capetown@southafrica.iiba.org. I'll post all the links and the link to Lyle's profile as well on the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I will hand over to you, Lyle. Okay.
Okay, welcome to Data Driven Business Analysis. And I want to take each one of you through this data-driven journey. So all of you have experienced the pandemic. I think we're all in recovery mode from the pandemic. The cracks are beginning to recede. We're all feeling the effects of the post-pandemic world. So we see an increase in digitalization, it's changing the way we work, it's changing the way that we interact with our business processes. And today I want to focus on how data-driven processes are impacting our lives and how you as a business analyst can provide value in data-driven initiatives that may be impacting you. So we looked at the pandemic, but I'm going to take you back to almost 200 years ago to another pandemic. And this pandemic was the cholera pandemic, and it was impacting London in 1854 until a hero stepped in, and his name was Jon Snow. So for Game of Thrones fans, you may be a bit disappointed, but this Jon Snow, he was another type of hero. What he set out to do was to stop the infection and to stop a pump from infecting people within London. So he did his analysis, he went to hospitals, he monitored the sick, and he observed patients. And what he did was he plotted all the infections around the pump and did a rudimentary visual analysis. So we can see the pump here, we can see his visual chart, his diagram, we can see all the infections around the pump on Broad Street. So this was advanced at the time. And his approach was advanced as well, because most people believe that infection was caused by some miasma in the air. There was no modern day germ theory. And Jon Snow's approach was novel, it was different, it challenged the basic assumptions at the time. So we had Jon Snow with his data-driven visual map, and we had the critics who had basic assumptions and basic viewpoints based on what they had experienced before. Now come to our modern day, come to using modern data visualization tools, modern data capabilities. We can quickly use the same coordinates for the pump, the same coordinates that Jon Snow used, and plot it on a modern map of London. And the streets are very much the same as they were in 1854. And then just like Jon Snow, we can overlay the infections using a heat map, and you can see the concentration of infections around the Broad Street pump at the middle of this map. So this is the power we have with modern data tools. We can build data-driven insights, we can find these correlations. But I think the true power we have is to combine data-driven insights and those general assumptions, the business experience. And I believe a business analyst can act as a catalyst between these two worlds. So we have this modern business analyst, but we also have an increase in computational tools, new sexy titles, the data engineer, the data scientist. And people are just worried about analytical investigations. But I still believe that a traditional skill of a business analyst is the most critical, and that is critical thinking. If you think about AI tools, if you think about analytical tools, they are usually designed with a singular purpose. If you take a traffic management system, for instance, which monitors traffic bottlenecks, it's not going to turn around and suddenly play a game with you. So a business analyst can look at problems, can look at questions from different perspectives. Business analysts can have a 360-degree view. A business analyst can take stakeholder perspectives, data perspectives, observation, can evaluate different problems, can evaluate different solutions. And through this collective intelligence, acting as a catalyst, provide true value with what is available at any point in time. So today we're going to walk through different techniques to go on this data journey. Things like data profiling, things like data modeling, and things like data stories, where we can summarize data, conceptualize data, and navigate insights from data to provide business value using critical thinking that a business analyst has. So we're all familiar with gathering requirements. It doesn't change. You have to understand your requirements. You have to hold your stakeholder close, and you have to take the stakeholder on this business journey. And a typical tool that you may use for gathering requirements is the 5 W's and the 2 H's. So it's one way to frame your insights. It's one way to ask your questions. It's one way to find the problem you're trying to solve. So if you think about Jon Snow, he was particularly looking for where the infections were, who the infected were, why they were infected, and how they were infected. He framed his insights and he framed his hypothesis looking at different questions. Similarly, in our organizations, we have business problems. As a sales manager, you may want to ask, where are sales occurring? Who are his customers? And why are sales trends increasing? So we define our questions, we delve into the questions, we delve into the problem, and as we discover insights, we can delve in even further and refine our solutions. So this is our data-driven pipeline. This is our data-driven journey. We start from sourcing data. You've gathered your requirements. You understand your business questions. You want to source the data to support those questions. So Jon Snow, he gathered his data. He looked at the infections, and he sourced the data that he had available to measure the infections. Similarly, we can source data for point of sale systems, online repositories, planning systems, various systems to support our business questions. And then we integrate that information, integrate it and transform it. And a business analyst plays a role in this, working with the stakeholders, trying to summarize the data and seeing if it's fit for purpose. Then it's put in a destination where a business analyst may conceptualize the architecture, work with the stakeholder, understand the entities, understand the requirements, and create a conceptual model that is fit for purpose and supports reports, analytics, and the business need. And finally, those reports manifest, feeding the insights and driving business action. So I'm going to walk you through this whole pipeline, and through all these steps, you can provide value. So as we source our data, we profile it. We want to understand the data. In this day and age, I see many business analysts using tools such as SQL, Python, delving into data. And that's understandable. Data is the pipeline of your business. Data is the pulse of your business. You want to understand your data. You want to summarize it to make sure that it serves the business purpose and to make sure that the quality is sufficient to validate your solution. So data quality is something that's very important. A data scientist spends about 60% of their time just resolving quality issues. Data quality also affects downstream needs, business needs. Poor quality can affect regulatory compliance needs. It can affect financial needs, can affect your customer relations as well. So we have to look at data quality and the various aspects of this quality. So what are the important factors in quality? Accuracy. You want your data to be right to the correct decimal point. Consistency. You want your reports to reflect the same values when the same thing is being reflected. Completeness. You want complete information, complete IDs, complete tables. Precision. When you have business models, when you're predicting values, you want to ensure that there's consistent accuracy and the models are providing reliable information. And timeliness. You want the right data at the right time to support business decisions when they are needed. You may also perform profiling tasks. So data profiling is that summarization of data. We do various forms of profiling to look at our source data, to look at target information, and to maybe compare tables to reports or source information and different tables to different reporting artifacts. You may profile columns, look at the uniqueness of rows, look at the uniqueness of entities. You may, for instance, want to show individuals and make sure that all the values line up to one particular individual and that you don't have repetition of information. You look at things criteria like maximums and minimums. For instance, you may not want sales above a certain value, and if it's showing a sale amount above a certain value, that's an outlier. A minimum, you may not want to show negative sales. And averages, you may monitor this to see that it's meeting your particular trend. You also have distributions where you can look at outliers and see if there are any funnies within your data. Other things you can do is data rule validation. You may set conditions. For instance, you may prevent negative values in sales. You may look at particular genders and ensure that your data fits these constraints. You also have calculations that you may perform and check the results of these values. But you as a business analyst, you are very fortunate. You have tools such as Power BI, you have tools such as Tableau, tools that assist you in validating data. So this is Power BI. Instantly, we can connect to our data, get a sense of the column profile, get a sense of the minimums, get a sense of the maximums, get a sense of unique values and the distribution of information. Also see a little bit of quality there, showing the errors in values. So errors could be null values and poorly transformed information. So using data profiling tools like this can automate your profiling journey. So this is a particular area where a business analyst who works with stakeholders, who has a relationship, can highlight quality issues, can also gather potential quality issues from stakeholders. So now we've integrated our data, we've enriched our data, we've ensured it's got proper quality, and then we put it in our destination. So that's where data is in as sufficient quality and it's a sufficient structure to support reporting. So you as a business analyst, you work closely with the stakeholders. You know your underlying questions. You've asked, for instance, in the sales scenario, where your sales are occurring. You want to know over what time period it's occurring, what products are selling. And this is a popular data model. It's called a star schema. It helps improve understanding of your data. It's a good way to represent your data. It also increases performance. And as you engage with your stakeholders, you can actually build a real-world view of the entities in your data warehouse. So as a business analyst looking at a sales manager, the entities you may look at are things like stores, product, customer, and time. So these are the spokes, as you see there, on the ends of the star, or the spokes of the star. Those tables are the attributes. They basically the context by which you want to see sales. So you want to see sales by store, you want to see sales over time, you want to see sales by product. That's how you're mapping the entities. So sales in the middle, you can see that we call it a fact table. It will basically contain things that are values, things that can be aggregated, calculated on. That we put in the center. And the spokes would be attributes, things that provide information about the values, things that provide context about the values. So you can think about when you're doing analysis or doing reports, you select a particular store. If you're looking at a dashboard, you subset that information and you show sales for that particular store. So representing this data in this way is actually representing particular ways you can subset your information, subset by store, subset by time, subset by product. And you can see in the store table, you've got store IDs and all the store related information. So if you select in that particular store ID, that data will be subset. So it's only showing the relevant data that you need for the analysis that you're doing. And in this way, it increases performance. So this structure increases performance, increases understanding, and allows you to communicate your design and what you're trying to achieve with your data to stakeholders. It also provides checks and balances. I can verify my data. If I change my store table, there's a relationship between that store table and sales. So there's check and balance. It ensures consistency with your information. So this increases efficiency, it lowers risk for the organization, and it's ensuring that your data solution provides value. So now we're going to look at the data insights. You've modeled your data, you've prepared your data using those entities in a way that supports reporting. It makes sense, it's understanding, it represents the real world. So with data insights, I'm just going to look at something that we commonly work on, which is a dashboard. So this is a dashboard, and the dashboard is actually based upon the questions that we have asked. So looking at that sales manager scenario, remember we asked where sales are occurring. So we've got a timeline here showing sales over time. What products are selling? So we've got sales by various product types. Who are we selling to? We've got sales by customer. Where are we selling? So various questions are answered by various frames. I'm using classic dashboard design of an overview at the top. This is a high-level overview. I can introduce you to the context. I can say to you, look, sales have been increasing from year to year, as I can see on a high level. And then in the middle, I have all the categories I can subset my data by. So those are the categories I can slice and dice by. So it's from overview to the zoom and filter layer to the detail at the bottom. That's a classic dashboard design. And it allows the dashboard to be actionable. I can delve from frame to frame. Select 2014. I see it's a good year. We can investigate this data. I can go into the product frame, expand it. I notice that certain items are performing very well. I look at office equipment, like this Canon image class advanced copier. For 2014, it's performing very well when compared to all the years in total. But if I look at smartphones, they're not performing as well. If I speak to my stakeholders, I may get additional insight. They will tell me that in 2014, cheap smartphones hit the market, and it's impacting the big brands here that we are seeing. So I'm taking external context, qualitative context, combining with the insights I see from data. And then I have customers here and a detailed list at the bottom. So now I can select customers, I can look at the detailed list, and the detailed list at the bottom is an actionable list I can follow on. It gives me a list of customers. It has all the perspectives in the different columns, and that I can action, follow up on the important customers, make those sales, and prevent customer attrition. So classic dashboard design from a high level to the detail, designed for impact and designed to answer all the questions that you have from your requirements. I can also do something else. What I can do is I can take a chart, this chart that I see there, add some smart narratives. And now that is what we call augmented analytics. It's machine-driven insight. So using natural language processing, the machine is telling me that Canon image class 2200 advanced copier accounts for most of the sales. So from a data-driven perspective, it's telling me what I am seeing from a human-driven insight. So we can combine these worlds and add value. So I've shown you how we do use a dashboard to answer the different questions. But the way I was delving from frame to frame, I was actually using a story structure. Delving from the setup, that high level that we saw there, the high level of information, the trends, introducing you to the scenario. And then going through to the rising action, going from insight to insight, insight about mobile phone penetration, insight about how well the office equipment is performing. And we see that office equipment is overtaking mobile phone performance. So that's leading us to a climax. Maybe I should just follow up on the office equipment, focus on those customers, and that's your automatic resolution. You've got that detailed list at the bottom, that call to action, and the customer list, and we're going to follow up on that. So that's using a story structure like in this Calvin and Hobbes comic, a basic story structure which you can apply on reports, apply in dashboards. And as a business analyst, you've got those communication skills. You can deliver insights to the business. I'm going to tell you another story as well. I just want to show you an example of how this story structure is used by data journalists. Data journalists are experts at combining data, visuals, and narrative and leading an audience to the insights they want to see. They're journalists. They know how to make things sexy and interesting. So I'm going to take you back to 2012 and the listing of our Facebook on the NASDAQ exchange. So 2012 was a big year for Facebook. Facebook listed on the public exchange, and Facebook was quite expensive at the time. So you can imagine investors being worried about investing in Facebook, being worried about the investment and the returns later down the line. So we're just going to look at the way New York Times depicted this event for the investors. So what we see, they're using the same story structure I introduced you to, going frame by frame, leading the audience to a call to action. So in the first frame, the heading is the Facebook offering, how it compares, dramatic. The first frame, they're introducing us to a timeline of IPOs being launched over a historical time frame from about 1970 to 2012. So we can see all these IPOs, initial public offerings. Apple went public in about 1980. Google went public in 2004. So they're setting the scene for us. You can see here in 2000 is a big cluster year. Some of you may remember the dot-com boom. So many companies listed at that point in time. And they provide us with narration. Hi.
Hi, sorry. We're not seeing the Facebook data. I'm not sure if you are presenting it.
Okay, let me see. Can you see it now?
No, not yet. Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, we start again. Okay, we can see the time frame. Okay, they're introducing us in the first frame to the scene. They're introducing us to the tech IPOs over a period in history from 1970 to 2012. And we can see Apple went public in 1980. We can see Google went public in 2004. And we can see all these dot-com companies clustered here around 2000. So some of you remember that period, the dot-com boom era. So they're using data points, they're using visuals, and they're using a narrative here to describe the setting for us. Since 1980, there have been about 2,400 tech, internet, and telecom initial public offerings. Until this week, the largest by market capitalization was Google, which is valued at 23 billion or about 28 billion in today's dollars. So they're setting the scene for us, introducing us to the players. And then they introduce our hero. He's our Calvin, Facebook. Facebook's offer price was $38 a share, giving the company a valuation of $104 billion, 4 times larger than Google. So you can see Facebook basically diminishing all the other players. You can see it's 4 times larger than Google. You get a feeling and a sense that this is a company with high valuation, and you get a sense that if you invest in it, it's a big investment and a potential risky investment. So what they do now, they go into another frame to show rates of change. This is a different, they're changing the way that they're representing the data. They're doing it with increases and decreases. So this is a change of scenery. So they're changing scenery and context with the way they represent their data. And then they introduce that first day pop. So this is the first day of investments. So the first day of trading, stock rises, people feel confident, the price of shares rise after its initial offer price. So that's the first day bump, and it signals the market's confidence. I can show you the increase again. So I'll go from the previous frame, that first day bump. You can see a big bump here in the year 2000, particularly the dot-com companies. So gives you a sense of that enthusiasm initially after companies go public. But then it's contrasted. We look 3 years later. 3 years after the IPO, 2/3 of companies have negative returns, including nearly all companies that went public during the dot-com bubble of about 2000. So 60% of companies with offerings since 2010 have negative returns so far. So we go previous and we go back. So we can see the contrast, that confidence on the first day of trading and the negative return 3 years later. So what is this showing us? What are they trying to show through this visualization, through the story? They're following our story structure, following the narrative structure. They're following a way you can communicate those insights. They set up with the initial scene, the problem. They introduce the key players. They introduce Facebook. They have a rising action. They show the inflated expectations on the first day, but then they contrast it with the returns of these IPOs 3 years later. And that contrast is the climax. And you have a bad feeling. So what's the resolution? What should the investors do? You want to make a big investment, beware of the potential losses. And with a big player like Facebook, you have to know that you're taking on a big risk. So that's how the story is structured, and that's how it leads us to that innuendo and that call to action. So now we've spoken about insights, spoken about stories, and let's just wrap it up. We talk about business value, and that's what we are about. So you as a business analyst, you're taking your stakeholder on a journey. I believe that at the beginning of the data initiative, that's where you start with the stakeholder, that's where you start hand-holding them, and that's where you start taking them on the journey, leading them from source to the value that you provide, holding them close to what you're finding in your data, from source, identifying the data sources, informing your stakeholder of progress, from profiling, informing them of possible data issues, from the destination, using the insight to model the data and increase performance and increase consistency and lowering risk, to the reports where you help conceptualize the insights and you help them deliver insights. So you're offering value at every point of this data initiative value chain. And that's the value you can provide as a business analyst. And as your organization maturity expands, as your maturity of data improves in your organization, you can get more advanced in your analytics. So data, clean data is central to all your data initiative, no matter if it's simple. So you can see here the self-service, agile visualization, the dashboard we did, where we delved into the insights, asked why it happened, to the smart augmented analytics, combining machine learning, combining that journey that we presented through the self-service tool to more advanced analytics, predictive analytics. You may want to forecast those sales trends and see what happens in the future. That's when the business asks more advanced questions. What will happen? We may have prescriptive analytics, when our solution actually tells us which customers to focus on at the outset. So that's optimizing our actions, gets more advanced until we get to autonomous systems, which we're not yet at. That's when AI does everything for us. So depending on the maturity of the environment, depending on the questions that your stakeholders are asking, you will come up with the proper data solution to meet their needs, and also taking into consideration how mature your environment is and what level of quality your data is at. So I've walked you through that data pipeline, and you're welcome to ask questions. I'm sure you have some questions to ask. And thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Lau. This was the slide that I was asking you about. I'm very much excited. There's a lot of questions people are posing on the chats. The first question is from Zoletu, who says, can you outsource the profiling to a specialist?
So I'd say that you can outsource the profiling to a specialist. A lot of these tasks you can outsource. It depends on your environment. It depends on the maturity of the environment, and it depends on what the role entails within your environment itself. So you may work with someone like a data analyst, for instance, to profile the data. You may work with a data engineer who's very close to the data pipelining and possibly the automation of the profiling. Yeah.
So Letu, you can ask your follow-up question if you have.
No, I in fact, I also posted it. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I've already posted it. Yeah, I've already posted it as well, because this journey to me sounds like that of a BIBA.
I am a BIBA, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's what, because I've been listening throughout it, because and trying to understand.
If you as a business analyst, if you're involved with a data project and you want to meet your BIBA or meet the data team halfway, you can meet them by taking on these tasks. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lau, for that.
Thank you, Zweletu. I see there's a hand up from Duduzile. I'm gonna allow you to chat, Duduzile. So you can pose your question, Duduzile. Okay, she's a bit quiet. I think it's a she. There's a hand up from Tijaz as well. I'm going to allow you to speak, Tijaz.
Hello. Hello. This is no, fantastic presentation. I think what you've mentioned is that there is I mean, one insights, there's a what you call a barrier, or a barrier between what you presented with that with Facebook, and how do you and I think that was exact. How did you come up with the overall summation of that analysis?
You're talking about the story structure and the storyboarding.
The slide before that.
Okay, you're talking about the dashboard.
The storyboarding, yeah, the storyboarding one, and then the dashboard 2.
Okay, so how I came up with the summation of the insights.
Yeah. So, for example, like so ideally there had to be a need to which to a business need, or to which you had to speak to, right? So essentially, from requirement gathering standpoint, or from a standpoint of being able to address customer needs specific to the insights that they you're functionally delivering or non-functionally delivering, and then the connections and the connections between the systems, especially with Facebook and the Facebook Facebook Nasdaq. You know, the Facebook Nasdaq, where the Facebook Nasdaq that core. The core underlier of that stock, or core underlier of that security, which is traded which is traded across the world, has like an effect, right? So that effect is very compound, meaning it's very the impact of being able to know data. So essentially, the basis of your research, which is fantastic, is where's the core artifacts of you know, the value gained, right? So which is the most important, meaning that our customers happy? Are they, you know,
Okay,
do they
okay.
less pain points, no pain at all? You know, they're
Okay.
try to,
So you basically, you keep your customer close at every point of your journey, and you'd ask your customer at the outset, what questions do you want to answer? What type of insights do you want? What do you want to action within your company? What is your business problem? You would ask the customer themselves these questions. You try to align with them. You try to understand. You try to understand what they have, what the gaps are. And I think the best is to actually, as you start drawing data, as you start building the artifacts, feed back what you're actually creating to the customer. So you may refine it even further. You know, like your dashboard, rather have a proof of concept for them. See if it's meeting their need, and they may refine it further. I can tell you at the outset, most customers don't know 100% what they want. They don't know 100% what type of questions they want. And sometimes just by using the dashboard, you know, looking at all those questions that we had, where the sales are occurring, who we're selling to, the customer, they may have other types of questions that they want to look at. Maybe they want to know who the top customers are. Maybe refine them, categorize them. Maybe they want to know who the best sales agents are, you know, recognizing for the good sales. So as they interact with the solution, new questions may arise. It's a continuous journey that you have with the customer. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and you said 100% arising from the questions themselves have some bit of core analysis. And when I say that, I mean understanding of overall justifications, or overall business rules, and core facts or dimensions does that come up from that star schema that you showed? Like, you know, that star.
Yes. So you have to understand how that data is actually, you know, how it actually results in that data. For instance, your sales revenues, you have to know, is that net of expenses? Is it profit? We want to know what type of customers are excluded or included in the data. So those type of questions you ask to understand, is it meeting the stakeholder need? Does it have complete data? Does it have a complete data set? Does it have a complete picture?
Yeah. Okay, good. I mean, I really appreciate it. I still have a lot of
you can message me as well.
I
always answering
that.
questions.
So thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Tijaz. I have a question from Snowbomb, who asks, what tools would you recommend for a beginner?
What would I recommend for a beginner? With regards to,
I'm thinking maybe tools that a beginner can use if a person is new to data analysis.
Okay, I'd say use Power BI.
Okay.
It's free to download. You can access many data sources from it. You can even model data within the tool itself. So you can do those star schemas, you can pull from data sources, and it's free. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We have another question from Karen who asks, what is the difference between a BA and a data BA?
Data BA. Yeah, these data BA. You see there's a business data analyst and there's a data BA. So people say data BA, I just think it's a BA in a data environment. And the difference is that the artifact that they're working on is data-centric. So you have to take in, there's data considerations, you have to take in performance around data and also quality issues around data, because data is going to affect, data is fundamental to the solution that you're creating. So yeah, that's the difference. It is very much a quality aspect with data BA.
Okay. Are there any follow-up questions, Karen? You can unmute yourself.
No, all good, thank you.
All right, cool. We have another question from Mayo, who says, what recognized BA certification can you start with to get into data analytics?
Okay, so it's the IIBA business analysis. I think it depends what you want to do in data analytics. If you want a business analyst, just do the core IIBA business analysis. They also have a business data analysis certificate, which gives you a view of data analysis tasks that may help you with things like profiling. So it's a nice bridge between the business analyst and some profiling tasks. So I see IIBA has looked at some of those dimensions. There's also a nice article on the business data analyst you can look at on the IIBA website as well. But start with the IIBA, the business analysis certification, and the data analysis certification.
Thanks. Are there any other questions, Mayor?
No, that was clear. It was more just a question of how do you start off, getting an understanding of data and, to begin your journey.
Okay, cool. Great. So Andrew says, how do you ensure data quality and consistency on a predefined frequency, say monthly for large data sets of maybe 100,000 records?
Okay, so it depends. Is the data set being updated? Is it being updated monthly? Is it a trickle feed, or is it?
You may speak, Andrew.
Andrew,
I unmuted you. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
You may unmute yourself and speak. Quiet there.
Okay, I just want another frequency updates. Look, you want to know a data set. You said monthly. Okay, for a large data set.
Yeah, hi there, Lal. Apologies about that delay there. Yeah, so I mean, typically this data is changing on a daily basis, if that,
on a daily
within
basis.
the source system. Yeah, and obviously, month-end reporting, etc. One thing that I have struggled with is the ensuring data quality and like the consistency. So how do you know that, this month's pool is going to be correct and the data quality is going to be correct because the source system is changing?
It's the source system changing. So the source from the data, from the actual source system.
Sorry,
it's not consistent.
The data within the source system is changing.
The data within the source system is changing.
Yeah.
So you'll have to have some kind of real-time profiling, some way to monitor on a daily basis what the data issues, and you'll have to have some alerts set up when certain conditions are not met. If you have a certain number of nulls, if maybe you don't have a certain number of volumes of data, or you don't have, or if the data types are not matching what you expect. So you'd have to build those alerts into a package or process and monitor those on a daily basis.
Okay, cool.
Is that yeah.
It does, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. So Edward says, great presentation, Lal. I strongly believe that BAs should have data skills since modern product development is anchored on trends derived from data. So there's a lot of kudos and thank yous from people. Sitsedi says, where does one start the journey to acquire the data skills? Any recommendations?
Okay, to be honest, I think the best way is to do a statistics course. Do some basic statistics course to get an understanding of, profiling data, what to monitor data, and to get a feel and interest in summarizing data and understanding the models that statistical models you may create. Because if you work with also people like data engineers, data scientists, data professionals, you want to also meet them halfway. You want to understand the language that they speak. Those kind of courses can help you on that journey. And you can do, these days, there are a lot of bridging courses available. These days, edX offers statistics courses at graduate level, and it gives you university level education. So those are quite useful as well.
Okay, great. So there's a second question from Andrew. Says, how do you ensure your stakeholders trust the data when you're taking them on this journey?
So to ensure that stakeholders trust your data is, I think the best way is to show the evidence from your actual profiling, to show the evidence. If you're doing testing, to show them the results and to show them what you have discovered. So you'll have test evidence, profiling evidence, showing maybe comparisons between sources and targets, showing the results of your data profiling, the statistics, the stats, the summarizations. And in fact, one of the best ways is to involve your users, the stakeholders in testing themselves. They're going to test the reports. They're going to test the dashboards. They will know if those metrics and those KPIs and those business rules don't tie up to what they expect. Yeah. So they'll have a feel for the actual result that you are presenting.
Okay, great. There's a question from Sean who says, for modeling, there are matrices, bus matrices, ERDs, and mockups of the report or the dashboards. Are there any other modeling techniques you would recommend?
Okay, so we looked at star schema. There's also Snowflake, which breaks up your dimensions further. That's more relevant to disk-based data storage. So you can break it up further to fine-tune and even analyze a smaller subset of your data. So maybe your store, you can even break it up further to maybe areas within your store and monitor those. And there are other models as well. You can use flat tables, longer relational tables that have more data clustered together. That's better for modern tools that use in-memory techniques for fast calculation. So you cluster all the data in the flat table. It's designed for fast calculation. And for hierarchical data, you may use a hierarchy. So you can drill down a hierarchy. That's also another model that is used. So those are the common models: flat tables, star schemas, snowflakes, and hierarchical models.
Okay, there's a comment from Edward to Maureen. So my 2 cents worth of opinion: every transaction between a customer and an organization generates a piece of data. The starting point is understanding the point of entry of how this data string. And secondly, how then it gets enriched through decoding and encoding or encoding internally to make sense, I guess, of what he just said. Thirdly, where is it stored internally? For how long it is stored based on business rules. Fourthly, how it gets extracted through various reports to draw insights. I'm gonna allow Edward to expand on his comment there.
Okay.
If you can elaborate on your comment, Edward.
Thanks, Z. So I was actually thinking, I was typing very fast, so I see that I missed some of the things. I was actually trying to respond to the question from a business perspective to say, I think even before you understand how to manipulate data through the statistics courses that I referred to, I think it's important to have a high-level understanding of the fact that there's always data flowing between customers and organizations, which is obviously understanding how it gets into the organization. What data do we need? How do we ensure that data is clean so that it makes business sense? Because if it's not, if we don't wrap around business rules around it as a point of entry, we end up with a garbage in, garbage out, which is a problem that organizations would have. For an example, we have 3 instances of the same customer. Now, when you update one instance, you find that because the customer has got 3 or 4 products with us, that's also a problem where we don't understand the point of entry. So it's quite important that you understand that, and also then understand how it, it travels through the organization, where it gets enriched in a form of making sure that, we have that view, which is a single view, whether we need to merge or we need to dissect the data internally, and also then from a warehousing perspective, how do we store it? Where do we store it? What can we store? What can we not store? Etc. etc. And
the core business analyst functions.
Exactly.
You're looking at the core business analyst capabilities, and then you're wrapping that around your data journey. Yes. Exactly. So that's why I highlighted the IIBA courses, because the thing is, you don't want to veer away from your core skill sets. You don't want to veer away from those core questions that you're asking, as you're saying, that entry point.
Absolutely.
And everything else adds on to that value that you provide as a business analyst. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. To the point of reporting, of course, because a report that has no insights means nothing to business.
Yes. Yes. That is great.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Edward, for that. There's another question from Zuletu who says, would you recommend prototypes to gain stakeholder trust?
I love using prototypes. I recommend prototypes, and it saves time. Make sure you're not going on the wrong journey. It also catches, we work in very agile environments these days. Things change all the time. Even daily, you may be working on something and the client may come up with a new question, or you may spot a new insight. You may, in fact, when they interact with the reporting or their dashboard or visualization artifacts, sometimes that's the first time that they actually get the kind of insights that they want. They really get to see the questions that they're asking. They really get to understand. They really get to understand the insights. And typically they come up with new questions that they want to ask. So prototypes are very good for an iterative journey. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have another question from Andre, who says, hi, Lyle, would you recommend that SQL also is learned for scenarios where the BA doesn't always consult or manipulate data?
So he's not manipulating data. He's not going to touch data at all. I'm just curious, Andre.
Andre, can you elaborate on your question? You can unmute yourself. I think Andre's taking some time. Oh, here he is.
Okay. Just want to think of the scenario.
Hi, Andre.
Okay, if Andre is talking about a scenario where the BA won't have to manipulate data at all, and maybe he's just using a tool to profile data, he doesn't need SQL. So okay. SQL's just one tool it's the best tool to manipulate data and interact with data, but doesn't mean that the business analyst has to use SQL. The business analyst may also liaise with a data analyst or data scientist to profile the data. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Mapuluho, I see you have your hand up. You can mute yourself and speak and pose your question.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I feel like if I am a BIBA, then it makes sense, because then it says I have access to the different data sets, and I can be able to play around with the data, do the integration I need to be able to derive insights out of it. But now I need to know if I am a business analyst who is treated as part of business, and then the technical team is like on the other end. How do I, as a business analyst, then sort of like bridge that gap? Because the gap is there. Because first of all, I don't even have access to the data. Would I need to go through, like, would I always need to go through the reporting guys, through the BI guys to make sure that I also get my hands dirty as a
may
business?
Collaborate with the BI guys, but it's all dependent on your project purpose and your project charter and who has, the influence in your project, because you may have to ask for access to that data repository. You may have to log to gain access to that data warehouse. You may use a tool like Power BI just to interact with the data warehouse. And just in a tool like Power BI, you may just call the data warehouse and click the tables that you want to see. You don't have to physically access, the data warehouse system, the SQL server, and those kind of things. So you need the rights to actually do that. So that's a question you have to ask. Would you have permissions? Would you have the rights as per the project charter and as per the actual goal of the project? Are you given that veto to access the data warehouse? And if you are, you can do that yourself. You can profile the data from wherever you are, having the right tool. Does that answer your question?
I think it does to a certain extent, because, well, I'm thinking sometimes it's not necessarily about allow me to say my roles, my role and the nature of the project. Sometimes it's something as simple as I'm busy with my BRS, and then I need to combine that with a business case. And all the numbers that are on the business case, I feel like as a business analyst, I wish I could also be in a position where I am able to say, after whoever has said that we're expecting revenue increments of so much in over a period of 6 months, then as a business analyst, I feel like I also need to not just write it down, but also do some verification on my side to say, I do see the feasibility of what has been projected here,
Okay, so then that just requires access to the data and you doing analysis on top of the data that you're accessing.
Okay.
And that's a form of profiling.
All right. Thank you very much, Mapu. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. There's a lot of kudos and thank yous. Lyle, people have loved today's presentation, so have I. Thank you very much for making time for us, for sharing your amazing talent and your insights with us as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much to everyone that was able to join. See you on our next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Hey,
have a lovely evening.
Is it that the Calendly site to present next? Will it always be available?
Pardon?
That Calendly to become a speaker, like it says, will it always be available?
Yes, you may also send the email to this email address, which is capetown@southafrica.iiba.org. So if you are interested in being a speaker, you can send an email there.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, teachers. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Have a lovely evening, everybody. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lyle. Great presentation.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.